It's midnight on the Gold Coast. It's 2 p.m. in the Kingdom, and you're listening to the Cross League Podcast. Hi, and welcome to the third Cross League Podcast. With me again is Des Foy, and we're going to be talking about a couple of things about the World Cup Challenge, and then we've got some context interpretations that we need to go through. Then we might add a few comments, and then we might just have a little chat. So, Des, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, okay. It's very, very, very hot here. Stiflingly hot, which I think is the opposite of what you have.
Yes, stiflingly cold. Yeah, 8
Stifling.
degrees.
Right. Don't miss that. But dry and crisp,
Yeah,
so not
that's
too
it.
bad.
As long as it's not raining.
Yeah, it's quite muggy here, I suppose. It's hard to escape from you don't want to be sat down too long. But yeah, good for getting out. And it's actually been raining on and off recently. Hopefully that'll soften some of the ground because the grounds I've been playing on have been really hard.
Right.
So that I can barely wear boots. They're just absolutely rock hard. You miss the 3G, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of playing and that kind of thing, what did you think of the World Club Challenge?
The St. Helens and Penrith. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. I watched and I thought Penrith were terrible, to be honest. I know lots of people are saying, "Oh yeah, they'll still probably win it," but I can't. I mean, okay, they might not play as bad as that again, but I just thought they fell into the trap of playing for completions and just 5 drives and a kick and using too many sort of one out stuff, or even just go from dummy half and then just out of tackles. So they just put a kick up and just expecting, well, we'll get field position and we'll eventually score somehow. We just never did. Like even the try they scored, kick through in a chase, and that could have easily been diffused. So
So do you think St. Helens in some way prevented them from playing good stuff, or do you think that it was them themselves that had done that?
well, I think what happened was they were surprised at the intensity of St. Helens' defence. So expecting that they'd make more yards with the sort of early tackles, fullbacks and wingers, and then expecting that they'd make more yards with their one out forward drives. They were always coming up short. They were sort of having to kick it from not an attacking kick very often, just a kick just for the arm wrestle type kick that just so we'll wait for the next one. Wait to see where we start in the next one, and then like Saints where they were making enough ground that they could do the same thing for much of the game. I didn't think Saints were particularly good, but they played what was in front of them. They stopped Penrith from running riot and stayed in the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't give him much of a chance. I'm not sure. It was Gus Gould said that he thought that Penrith would be too strong for them, and then he was surprised. But then he actually said that it would be good it was good for the game. But was it good for the game? I don't know. Like it's not been. It's not. This doesn't seem like the time when Wigan won it. Do you know what I mean? It's like not been heralded, and maybe some of that is because of the time of year that it's played.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, if you're going to play at this time of year when both teams are only at the end of their pre-season, before the season starts, you're always going to get the excuse that, oh, well, we were undercooked because we've still been running up hills and we've still been in the gym for the last 5 weeks or whatever, We haven't really started like working on our ball playing and the combinations and stuff. and I like all this. I know they get coverage. The what do they call them? The preseason games. That everybody uses in the NRL.
With the
But
trials, they call them, don't
try
they?
it. Yeah, you look at it. Yeah, I think I did play in one against who was it? Canterbury, I think, when I was at Newcastle. But yeah, they're not a true reflection of where the club is. You get loads of people who might not get to actually play a game all season in the first grade
Yeah,
competition.
They weren't actually showing these on TV until this year or last year. There was a blocker.
That's right, yeah. Like this year, I mean, they even made some sort of competition, didn't they? That you could win 100 grand or something if you won most of your games. I think St. Helens were in that, weren't they?
Oh, right, yeah.
But it's like just throwing in another competition that's, I don't know. Like I'd rather seen, if you're going to have a competition, have a nines competition or something, have something different. But either get your stars to play or don't bother with it, because it's it's not very good when it's not the full team playing. To me, it's a wasted opportunity. The only thing is, if you do play your all your best players, the statistics show that perhaps two of them will get hurt, enough to miss the next game. So there's it's perhaps an unnecessary risk, and that's why teams don't play their best players all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough one. You kind of want to see it like almost like a Super Bowl, but I just think that the gulf between abilities when things are being taken seriously is too wide. And I think that the World Club Challenge was it 1997. I don't think we've ever really got over that, when it was like the European teams winning one game out of all their games, and all of the playoff part of the World Club Challenge being Australian teams, like and probably not even the the best Australian teams, because there was a Super League ARL war going on, so there ended up being, there was 20 odd teams at the time, wasn't there? And these were only a half, so it seemed like the Super League, the European Super League, was almost like a third division, considering they were getting beat by what was a mix of, good and no bad players, but you know what I mean? Like not a first, like the best team that club had put out over the last 3 years. Maybe that's the best way of putting it. Which eventually they did when the war ended or whatever. But it's interesting. Like it would be great if it could be, if both competitions respected each other enough and were evenly enough matched that the winner of Super League played the winner of the grand final of the NRL in a Super Bowl type scenario. It'd be amazing. But
but that would have to occur after the two grand finals, wouldn't it? So
it would,
give them a week off and then play it somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the
play
problem.
In Dubai.
Well, that I wouldn't be sort of totally opposed to that if they get coverage for it and they got sponsors for it, and it could then be shown live in both countries at the same time, sort of thing, and not be a early morning or middle of the night type of scenario. But it's definitely, the Penrith were missing Coruscant and Kickout, and they'd been key players all season. Like they got them to the grand final and that, So like you're playing a different team, really.
Yeah,
and I mean,
essentially, it's not the champions of champions, is it? Because the two teams that won the competition actually don't exist anymore. No, they've changes.
Yeah, I mean, Saints weren't that different. Saints, have most of the same players. But if you think of like Roby, obviously he's going on for another year, and he's still playing well. And but there's going to be a stage where he'll quit at the end of the Super League season. He won't be around if they were in the
That's
World
right.
Cup.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, well, yeah, our fella who's been great for us for all these years is now missing, despite the fact that he helped us win another championship, which
Mm.
I hasten to add. I think Saints will probably do that and will probably win again. Have to look some, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see anybody else beating them. Really, they've just got used to winning, and you know they've got some good players and good positions, and they're doing a good job.
Mm. Okay, we'll leave that there. So, and I'll just talk about in cross league news today is the England Lionhearts Northern trial. We had our AGM. I'm not sure if we spoke about that yet. But we are going ahead with the plans that we did speak about in the previous podcast, where we have a merit league and the Grand Prix as it was. We're still finalising dates for both. And to sort of kick the season off, we'll be looking at that Warrington versus Ireland on the 29th of April.
Yeah, yeah, all good. It's it's great to have these sort of fixtures. I think if you go back to just a couple of years ago when it was just sort of haphazard, do you lads fancy going there? Do you lads fancy coming here? That sort of thing. So the fact that we're shaping a calendar and we're getting teams to commit to go into places, that's good. Obviously I'd like more teams involved, and I'd like more teams to sort of host, and more teams to get to events. And but I do think that'll come, and we just need to sort of keep at it and just show, like we've said, what we're doing here with the just making sure that the contact interpretation that we put down is accepted by everybody, and they know what they're doing, and everybody sticks to that. And once we get that in place, I think it's an easier sell to new clubs coming on board.
And that's a nice segue into going through this little presentation that I have in front of me. So these are the interpretations that they have been added to, but only really to enforce what was already there. So we'll go through them in words, and what I might try and do is when we are talking about them, I might bring some examples into this so that people see the words and then an example of it happening or not happening, and I can sort of fill that in. So just one of the first things that comes up here, and something that is very common in cross league because the tackle is made on the ball, is a loose carry. So any drop ball from contact is a loose carry. Being touched first does not excuse a player from an incorrect play of the ball. However, a second attempt by a defender that dislodges the ball is deemed to be interference at the play of the ball.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So what we're basically saying is that the tackle is made by touching the ball. So, and a second attempt, that's playing on after you've already made the tackle. So same as rugby league. Once the tackle's been made, you can't still try tackling somebody. You can't interfere with the ball. Also, just the same as in rugby league, if the tackle's been made, the ball carrier then has to bring the ball back into play by the correct play of the ball. So if they mess up that, if they drop that on the floor, they can't say, "Oh no, the game's not started." They bring the game back into play, but they have the duty to sort of deliver that play the ball.
Yeah, so I think from a refereeing point of view, most things that are dropped are changeover. There's no real forgiveness there, I suppose. You are supposed to keep holding the ball. The other thing is, the most ambiguous part of this is that second attempt. Sometimes people don't know they're making a second attempt because they don't know the tackle's been complete. So there is that where if the ball was maybe dislodged in the second attempt, you could say, well, I'll let you play that rather than penalise the defender for the second attempt. So there is, whilst there is not a lot of leeway, there is in that second attempt part of the loose carry rule. And the other thing, again, about the second attempt is that people will often complete the tackle and head back to an onside position, leaving a second person to come up to marker. That second person, because they didn't make the tackle, can't hold on to the ball. That does, like looking at the World Cup footage, that does happen quite a bit.
Yes.
Obviously, it's hard for the person to know whether they've made the tackle or not themselves. So are they entitled to do that? But the answer is in some cases, no. So I think that's where a referee would need to say, release him. You're not the tackler. And that
Yeah,
gets us away
yeah,
from that.
yeah.
Okay, moving on. So setting the mark. This is an interesting interpretation we had to bring in because the mark it is a little bit ambiguous when people don't know when the tackle was made and where the tackle was made. And we do have a rule in the rule book where you are supposed to return to the mark, but not entirely. If you've ran off the mark by 3 steps, then you're only meant to take 2 back, etc. So I'll just read the interpretation. So the marker sets the mark only when a front-on tackle is made. A front-on can be defined as when the defender's back foot is closer to their try line than the attacker's front foot. Therefore, when a tackle is made from the side or behind, the defender does not set the mark. The ball carrier must play the ball within 2 steps of the tackle. If they take 3 steps, they must take a step back to set the mark. So you know, as I said, what you see a lot is tackles from the side and tackles from behind, where people have made half breaks, and then the defender may stand still as if to say, "You have to come right around me and play it from in front of me." But that's not how it works. That mark is there where you've made the contact, and the attacker has every right to play it from the spot they're in.
Yeah, I think maybe for some people who've played touch and who've played tag, that sort of making your touch and standing still as you're the mark, and they're supposed to come back to you. That's the rules in those
certainly
versions.
In tag, yeah.
So you just pull the tag off and you hold it to sort of say, "Come back and get this here." But yeah, you know what we've tried to do, and I think one thing that does is it speeds up the game, which I think is a good thing. You know, it rather than, as I said, one of the worst things I think about tag is that sort of having to come back, put your tag back on, fumble with the ball as you're doing that, and then play it. The game restarts. It can take an age, particularly with people who are sort of not that all fair with playing the game very often. You know, if they just drop into it every now and again, they can make that sort of mistake, and it makes the game to me look sloppy, and it slows it down considerably. So we want to sort of keep that. I suppose what you'd say is the reward for making a front-on tackle, and that means that you've used your footwork as a defender to get in front of the person, and you've took the ball front on. You know, when you're still in a front-on position, they have to play it there and then. If you've in that spot, you know, there you've set the mark there. But if they've managed to get away from you and you've just managed to sort of get a touch on the ball, stretched out, then they get the benefit there because they've done the bit of footwork that beat you, and they get to if they can manage to stop in 2 steps, they can play it where they stop. If they take 3 steps, they're supposed to come back a step.
Yeah, so just to add, like from a refereeing point of view, what normally happens, the usual mode of play where people aren't making a lot of headway passing wise early in the tackle count, you tend to end up with 3 front-on tackles and 2 probably from the side or behind, because that's just how sets work, isn't it? You have normally somebody takes it in, somebody else, they might try something, but you tend to get it where it's front on for a little bit, and then it ends up later in the set. There's more footwork, there's more space, and then that's where people are making tackles from the side or behind. So it's just something that you need to be mindful of as a referee to make sure that you don't take that sort of reward that you were speaking about there, Des, off the attackers.
Yeah.
Okay, so so these are the interpretations. We spoke about this before. We've had videos about this before, but we have redefined these, and this is probably the most important part of cross-league refereeing, is getting these interpretations right of what is the limit of contact. So these are things that are prohibited. So we're talking about charging, so that's taking excessive number of paces towards a defender with clearly no intent to change course or pass, it's a rule that it's a direct translation of ice hockey, where you can't take more than 2 skates towards a player, otherwise that's charging. We've not specified how many steps. We've said a number of paces, because like realistically people are different sizes, and like 2 steps for one person is one step for another, and then when do you where do you draw the line? So if it's obvious that they're taking a number of paces towards the defender with no intention of changing course, it's a charge. There's no two ways about that. And you do see it. People think, oh, I've got nowhere to go, and I do fancy charging into that guy. I'm gonna take the charge.
I think it's, in a way, it's sort of almost the default position of sort of somebody playing full contact who, it's that like, I'm just going to make it a little bit more difficult for the defenders to tackle me. So obviously, it's like you're trying to squeeze that extra few inches out of the collision. But obviously, we're playing a different sport. That it's not a collision. It's a it's a touch on the ball that makes a tackle. So that's why we've had to say you're not allowed to do that.
I think in high levels of tag, there is a rule where you because they're obsessed with faces, not was it spaces, not faces, which to a large degree we probably are, but we're not. It's not as codified as it is for them. They actually have a rule where if somebody gets in front of you and you end up like run into them, then that's a penalty. Or if they create a situation where they've made it so you have to run into them, then that's a penalty against them, which is a little bit, that can be argued either way. I think it ends up being a little bit like rugby union scrummaging. Who's brought that down? Who's made that happen? Whereas we're trying to be a bit more clear cut here in that they took excessive steps towards somebody, that's charging, and we do have definitions for things further back. So let's move on to barging. So barging is like after the contact has maybe started, you have a situation where if you're using a leg drive or an elbow or a forearm or a shoulder to bump the opponent out of the way, some upper body movement, that's barging. You're trying to barge your way through, and that's not allowed. So it's not to be confused with protecting the ball or controlling the play of the ball to facilitate a quicker or high quality play of the ball. So to explain that little bit, you are allowed to keep the ball away. You are allowed to keep your frame as big and as strong as possible to protect the ball. But what you're not allowed to do is use that frame as a weapon against the defender.
Yeah. Well, which is pretty much the same as full contact rugby league. Really, you're not allowed to use the forearm to bump people off. People do it to sort of and they get away with it, protection. But if you've sort of obviously led with the forearm or the elbow, I think there was an incident in some rugby union I saw recently. One of the Tuigamallas, or not Tuigamallas, what are they called? The the guy that used to play for St. Helens. He has
Tuilangi,
yeah, I think so. Like he sort of carrying it in the left arm with his right elbow lifted and just bumping off defenders with that. And so obviously that's illegal. That's it's illegal at whatever level you're playing at.
Very much like a common sense sort of rule. I think that the difference is there's probably slight bit of legal. There's a legal way to barge in full contact rugby. If if you're not striking with your elbow and you're not striking with your shoulder, if the shoulder and the elbow have somehow been incorporated in the contact and then you use leg drive to try and get through, that would be a legal barge. Whereas we would say there are no legal barges here. Your leg drive is no good. It's a penalty. So just moving on to pulling and pushing are the other two. I mean, you would think this is self-explanatory, but it isn't. It has to have a definition. So using arms and hands to manipulate the opponent's movement, not to be confused with using your arms to get closer to the ball, make contact with the ball. Only got 10 minutes left. Make contact with the ball in order to complete the tackle. Quite simply, you just can't be pulling at somebody's jersey or hands or hair for any real reason, unless there's a sort of a contact that's happening where you're trying to get a touch on the ball, and that's very clear. And if it's not very clear, that should be a penalty too.
Yeah, it should be. Like I say, I don't want us to get rid of that sort of, often attacking players will use the sort of attempt grip on them of a defender who's trying to then reach into the ball. They use that sort of momentum to help them spin around to look for offloads.
Yeah,
Sometimes
that's a
they
slingshot
spin around
effect.
twice, and then pass it on the second lap sort of thing.
Yeah.
But so I don't want to get rid of that, because I think it's good play from the attacking player to sort of use that sort of contact and use that slingshot type of thing to still keep the ball moving.
But of course, using a pull to then create a slingshot that slings someone to the ground, that would be, you're not looking for the ball, so therefore that's the penalty.
No.
Simple.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to pushing. I feel like lots of people know what pushing is. Like, it's written on door handles and that kind of thing. Like, it's just when you push. So using arms and hands to deliberately alter the momentum of an opponent, either with a forward fend, or in an attempted tackle where you're like, oh, they run out of play, I have an opportunity here to push them into a fence, I'm going to take it. Those kind of things you not really like, that you just really wouldn't do in any other variant. Like, anyway, the only legal push is a fend where you're looking to change direction. Now, this is sometimes contentious, so we've actually added a further definition here. So we've defined what is the forward fend. I'm just going to move on because it is here. So if you were holding the ball in your left arm and you were looking to move around somebody, you could put a fend out to try and create that space, knock their arms down or get around them. But what you could do is stand still, wait for them to come near you, push them away, and then take that space that you've just pushed them out of, because that's pushing. Whereas like protecting the ball, moving it from hand to hand and then defending it, making that frame either, to get away from them, or to put yourself in a better position to offload, or to put yourself in a better position to make a good quality play the ball, that's all fine. But it's as soon as you start trying to, deliberately alter the momentum of the opposition through pushing them, that's when it's a penalty. So I'll just read the forward fend and I'll let you talk. I'm sorry, I've kind of talked over you quite a bit there. So whilst fending to protect the ball is legal, the ball carrier must be looking to run around the defenders. A forward fend is akin to a push and will result in a penalty against the offending player. So it has come up quite a bit where people go, oh, there's nowhere to go. I'm bigger than that guy. I'm just going to push him and see what happens after I push them. So like it has been noted. Now, I think the other thing about this is there's probably some people who think, well, that was my move. My move's now gone. But it's not as if you can't change your angle slightly and do the fend that you were going to do, just to a few degrees one way or the other, and then you've done it, and you've kept your weapon.
Yeah, and I think in particular, we have Phil, who played for Ireland, plays down in Kerry. And he's a big guy, and one of the things that he does is, if he's carrying the ball in his right arm, he'll put his left arm out, and when you're coming in to sort of try and reach past that left arm, you can't get to it, because he's just strong and just holds you off. But what he's doing is he's moving to the right.
Exactly, it's making a big frame, isn't it? That's what's going on.
You're trying to get around to the touch on the ball, so you're making him move, but he's doing it to keep you at bay. So there's nothing wrong with that. He's not just giving you the big forearm fend, knock you out the way, run dead straight. He knows that you're going to move him and that you're going to be reaching in, but he moves with you as you're trying to reach in, and you're moving in the same direction. So that's fine. Like, often there'll be times where he scores tries because he gets it close to the line and people just can't reach in. The inside defender's tied up trying to reach over this arm. The outside defender, there isn't one, or they're tied up like defending the next person, and they don't come in soon enough. If they do come in, he tends to put a flick pass in. So that's why he's such a weapon. But that's, like I said, that's another thing that we want to keep in the game. That level of contact is allowed, and we do encourage it, and we want people to sort of use that, because that's the limited contact, but it's allowed. It's within the limits.
So the other thing on this slide is leg drive. We have spoke about it. It's I think the reason that we put it in here is because people are very aware of it as a part of the game, as part of the full game, I suppose.
Yeah.
That it's easily identified that there's a steps through contact. So any step after the initial contact with the ball or the opposing player will be considered. I think that's with the ball or the opposing player will be considered leg drive and will result in a penalty against the offending player. So it happens both ways. If you're in contact and you go, well, I'm going to make a bit of a ruck, not a ruck, like a maul out of this and start pushing the person back. You've made the contact, the tackle's complete. You obviously do have the right to leave your hand on the ball, but what you don't have a right to do is start using your legs to push them back, and vice versa. If you've just been tackled, you should be looking to play the ball. You shouldn't be looking to make a maul or a scrum out of the resulting play.
Yeah, obviously, it's a big part of the game. It's a big part of the stats now that people would say, meters after contact, which I think is like pathetic. It's just, it's why fellas don't offload really, because they're just interested in getting these meters after contact instead of looking for a back.
I blame Supercoach. Do you get points in Supercoach for?
I don't know.
I hope not.
But it's really, if you think of it from our perspective, tackle's been made. It's like you're trying to play on after the tackle's been made, where you've just got to play your ball, and that's and that works both sides of that contest.
Yeah,
that's sort of if you're carrying the ball, somebody touches it, you can't put driving backwards to get those extra 3 meters because you've done it after the tackle. The tackle was made.
Exactly.
If you're the defender, you can't touch the ball and then try and pick him up and push him backwards to put them further away from you. And it's. As I say, it's a sort of a common sense rugby league referee idea of don't let stuff continue after the tackle's been made, and you know when the tackle's been made.
Okay, we've just got about a minute left, so I'm just going to go do the duty of care one. So all players have a duty of care to any player they encounter on the field. So whilst the nature of cross-league rules means there will be contact, incidental and accidental, players must control their movements to the best of their abilities. To ensure the safety of all players. Anything deemed to be contrary to this will be penalised. So basically it's saying don't be reckless, control your body. Don't say, oh, I was running as fast as I could over there and I ended up running into that person, tripping up that person. You control everything that you do. Any sort of anytime you're not in control, you're risking somebody else's injury, and really that's what we want to get out of the game. So even if it's a case of making a tackle and checking someone's all right, or helping someone up, or just showing that you actually have control of your movements, that's an important thing to demonstrate to the referee. And anyone not doing this really should be penalised for not showing that kind of due care and attention. Duty of care covered off. So the only thing left here now is the excessive excessive contact and signal. So this came up through the World Cup. I think it's as good a hand signal as any. I've tried to depict it in the next slide. I have not done a very good job, but it's essentially your arms at your side and then crossing to in front of you.
Like a big straight armed clap.
Like a big straight armed clap is probably the best way of describing it. You start like that. You kind of start going like this, and I don't know what happens here. He's like dancing or something. But
I don't think
another frame where you couldn't see his arms might be the best, but it's a straight arm clap is the best way of putting it.
Great, because that's the sort of what you're saying is that the two sides have come together as a collision. So
is it similar? Is it similar to the rugby union signal for not tackling with the arms? And is there a rugby league signal for not tackling with the arms too? Are they not?
The rugby league one, is that not? They're saying it's a shoulder charge, aren't they?
Do they do a shoulder?
Shoulder, like Mord from Tiger Feet. You remember those lads who were doing the?
Oh yeah. But I think the rugby union one, is that not kind of a clamping?
I Is it? I don't know.
I couldn't
Maybe they'll-
find it when I went to look, and I
Yeah.
just thought if I ended up with a picture of Nigel Owens up here,
Oh, yeah.
that might be the end of Cross League. So, but I was going to ask you about the conversion thing. Had you had another chance to look at that? Have you had any more games? But I don't think you have played since then.
I haven't, no, because I've been busy with the college games, the
Mhm.
last few. So, yeah, I haven't been down on a Wednesday.
I'd be very interested to see how it's going around the place.
Yeah.
Hopefully they might use it today a little bit in the trials. And then the other thing that I was thinking, I think I made a note of this in the group earlier, is that perhaps you could use it as a sort of a county shootout if you had a draw.
Yeah.
Seems
Yeah.
like some death conversions.
Yeah.
So yeah, just thinking of borrowing things from other sports. I know I mentioned a bit about ice hockey. I think that we have a rule that's similar to American football, in that we've got 2 feet in the in goal as opposed to one. And there's quite a few little pieces from around. I think originally when we used the word tag, we're using tag in the baseball term of tag.
Yeah.
So I suppose what I wanted to ask you was, is there anything from other sports that you're watching now? Because I know you watch a lot of rugby, that you think is good and entertaining and something that you'd like to see in rugby league?
You put me on the spot there, haven't you?
Sorry about that. Well, maybe just like.
Well, one thing that I would say that I don't think. Well, one thing that I think is current that I see a lot of videos, video analysis of tries and good play. I can't think of the guy that does it. You know the ones you've sent me a couple recently. The guy does it and
where he breaks it down. I think he's called
the little tick with the circles and the number, everybody's number, and he has that play a video, don't he? I don't know what he's calling himself.
A contact coach or something like that.
Could be the contact coach, yeah.
Yeah, he's good. There are some terrible ones. I don't want to start naming names, but there's some terrible ones.
We were discussing it there before when we were saying what a lot of people do, and a lot of these so-called sort of experts on TikTok videos about lifts you should never do in the gym, and if you want this, do this, and I think, oh, God, will you shut up? But there's a lot of so-called rugby skills that are being presented to people that are probably just bad habit forming rather than actual good for learning skills.
I think one of the things you talk about a lot is close skill, and then is the opposite, open skill.
Yeah. There's too much. It's this sort of over-analysis, too much sports science. There's only one way to do it, and I'm the guy that's going to tell you how to do it. And if you don't do it exactly as I say, well, you're not doing it right. And that's a load of bunkum, It's sort of like it's horses for courses, you do what you have to do in a certain situation, and sometimes it's some of the best players in the world are unconventional.
Yeah, well, certainly if you look at that, so it's this Lions try that is it Old Trafford? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unconventional movement in that. Conventional passing, and even I know people kick back on the side quite a bit these days, but that wouldn't have been common enough move back then, would it? People tended to kick for themselves down the sideline. With a kick inside. There's an offload that's a little bit unusual to start as well, almost like a two-handed rugby union style and back, and then when Meninga gets it, he passes it like a shuttle pass or a basketball pass, over the top.
He dumps it over the top, But he doesn't leave it in the air a long time. He sort of gets his hands up and throws it down, doesn't he?
Yeah, in order to get it into the next place and as fast as possible. There's a lot to be said for not being conventional. I think that I did see I'll say it was that rugby bricks guy, and you know he has people throwing passes, and then he has them doing the same with a volley machine at a gym and this kind of thing. And I saw someone attacking him, saying, "That's not an attack, was it?" But he sort of said, "They were saying, why are you prescribing this pass when there are passes?" Now his response to that was something like, um, "You know, I'm just teaching the technique of this particular pass for this particular time. And yes, it is. There are different times you will pass in different ways. Like, but I suppose
Yeah.
what he meant to say was, this is the one that makes money because I can put it on social media in a short video, and you
Yeah.
idiots will start tagging each other in it, saying, "Oh, we should do that. We should do that," because it does look really good. Just like drills, like truck and trailer, that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with rugby of any sport really. It's like a little game of its own.
Yeah.
But it looks great from a distance, from above, like even when you're following a play around, because it's symmetrical and all the passes tend to be catchable and
Yeah.
so there isn't a lot of mistakes and this kind of thing. And
Yeah.
you know, you can
It looks like it's sort of been choreographed, doesn't it? That's the thing.
So
We're
like,
starting with that, like symmetry and choreography. Like we go in, as humans, we sort of like patterns like that.
yeah,
But it's not necessarily any good. I saw one, a drop off drill, and it was sort of just,
oh yeah, I think you said
running across somebody and turning it to. Now the first one was, well, they went forward a little bit and then they went across, and the person coming onto that ball ran straight to start with, and then started making their way on the inside, and then got a pass turned to him and passed to him. But then the next, they had the same two people then do it another twice, almost like
yeah,
DNA. And
yeah,
it
the
was just
helix.
mistimed, no running forward, no thought of where the defender might be. And I just think there's just so much of that. It's just like those second two offload passes, those second two drop off passes, were bad. They were just wrong.
Detrimental to development of skill.
Like just creating a bad habit.
Yeah.
You're doing it right once and then wrong twice. So you 2/3 of your little drill is bad. So don't do it like that.
Yeah, I think yeah, if someone should have said, it's a video, we can just loop it, can't we? Because they got one perfectly right.
Yeah. Get in the video editing suite and just do that another twice.
Yeah, I think I have I've tried that drill a few times. That sort of, let's have people going down, passing, practicing that passing, this kind of thing. And let's do on the way back. Let's do drop off, or let's do pass to 3 to 2 to 1. I think the last time I did that was actually with your guys in Tralee. But you need to have the right space, and you need to know that you're not in the same conditions as you would be a game, and you're only really trying to get your positioning and timing right. And I think a lot of the time, really, you should probably reset after each one of the because it's a bit like when you see people swinging kettlebells. Their first lift is vastly different to any of the others because they've had to get it moving, and then they've gone, all right, now I'm going to swing it. Now, if it's a case where I don't know, I'm not a kettlebell expert or anything, so like if they're going, oh, like actually the first one doesn't count, and the swinging is the only thing that counts, then fair enough. But that's not what we're looking at, is it? We're the exact opposite of that. We're the first one. The one that you started from static. That's the right one. Yeah. So like if there's going to be an assistance or what looked like it'll let it run out of room to me, the message that you sent me, like, and then they just tried to do it in a short space. But like it's not, it's practically pointless. But yeah, there's so much of that, isn't there?
Oh yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
It's very gimmicky, and I mean it sort of sells in the in the sort of medium that it's in.
Yeah.
It's hard to find good content. But one thing I think the other thing is it's hard to make good content.
Yeah, like I said, that guy's pretty good with the what do we call him? The
I think he's got
rugby
the contact coach.
contact coach. Yeah. He's good that he has that little. He has that diagram, doesn't he? That animated diagram where he has all the players numbered, and you see what angles they run and what have you. One thing I would say that happens a hell of a lot, and it happened like Ireland beat Italy yesterday, and this sort of the defence that people are thinking is the only thing that will work for him is just pick a player and go and smash him.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit.
It's like, well, we watched them practice this, so I'm gonna take this guy. You know, we've watched them. They do this play. That guy's usually a decoy, so we'll ignore him. And then what happens is that guy gets it, and they're still tackling the other guys who didn't get it. Like Italy did that in one instance, and Ireland went through and scored. And then Ireland ran a play that they obviously was right off the training ground sort of thing, and it was like bodies there and fake cross block, and then it went out. It was supposed to go out the back to the 10 who was coming around, or it might have been the 10 past 10, I'm not quite sure, but a defender happened to just get himself in the line, caught it, and went the length of the field and scored. And it was just like, it was this like preset, we're going to run this attack against that defense, and it'll either work out for us or it'll work out for them in that instance.
It's a strange thing, isn't it? That
there was no decision making. There's no decision making.
Yeah,
because he came up, made the decision that he was going to take one guy. That guy actually didn't get it and got out of his way, and then he found out that the ball was being thrown right at him.
Yeah, I think that the coach becoming the sort of chess master in rugby league has made it where you have a lot of athletic based choices in your team, and you end up like trying to win the grounding and do all these 1%ers because everyone's as good as each other supposedly, and you don't take any risks because why would you? If you've recruited right, which is part of your job, you should get and it starts to get very negative and not very adventurous. But then rugby union has seemed to have gone into a similar thing, but they were always very choreographed in their backs moves and moves that mix backs and forwards. Yeah. So they've gone even more choreographed by the sounds of things. Like they've gone right. Well, let's just improve our choreography. So neither sport has gone down the road of saying, let's get better at making decisions and let's have more decision makers on the field. Like in a lot of ways, rugby league now probably has about, on average, 4 less decision makers than a team from the 90s because there's no offloading prop, there's no offloading 13, and your centers tend to be more like strike players in the second row as opposed to someone that you might give it to. Remember, there was a time where a lot of centers would take the ball and run on the outside and have their own center, seeing what they might do with the winger and possibly drop off their winger. And I don't see that much anymore, Like, it's because I would imagine the reason is coaches are going, he's fast and he's athletic, but I don't trust him to make a decision. So, like, let's not put him in that situation,
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
So just another interesting thing. Do you get a lot of American football stuff?
Yes, I do. But I was sort of going to use the phrase that it's the poison of American football that has got to rugby league.
Yeah.
It definitely is that it's very much seen as a sport where the coaches just order these pieces around. You've got a quarterback making decisions. He'll have 3 options or only 3 pass options usually, but
but it's not. it's like their game hasn't evolved yet from where it was when they were like, whenever they made those sort of like decisions that we're going to have this passing pattern and that's it. We're going to run these routes.
Well, that's it. Guys are running routes, aren't they? And they're not in a position to even catch the ball. They're not in a position to make an adjustment because the ball's already in the air being thrown.
Yeah. So there was a time, wasn't there, when a lot of the coaching philosophy of American football made its way to what was the Winfield Cup, and I think
Gibson thing and the
yeah,
yeah,
and you kind of wonder whether
Milo over there once over.
Yeah, it's sort of like they took it as that's sort of better than what we're doing, but then no one said when to stop. It's like going for a glass of water and flood in the kitchen, like. That's kind of what's happened, isn't it? You've sort of gone, we do need something. I think we need to be more organized. We probably need to analyze things a little bit more closely rather than just pick the lads and tell them to do whatever they want with it. But then they forgot to sort of say, oh, well, we do want some lads who do something with it. Like it sort of gradually took its time.
That's the thing, and as I said earlier, the meters after contact. It's a massive plus for your team in American football. But I've never seen the stat where they say offloads in the tackle.
No, well,
they don't even care about offloads in the tackle because it's not part of their game. And really, meters, we're in a sport where you have to throw it back. So meters forward don't get you. They don't get you a second set of downs.
Yeah, exactly. Their meters after contact is like, well, if you got 9, then he might have changed the game.
Our fellas might strive to get tackled a meter short from the line, and all we have to do then is throw it back.
Yeah, but it's almost like because I did follow a little bit of the NFL towards the end of it. They just don't seem to have changed much. I follow this coach and he's obsessed with this thing called like a mesh offense, some kind of thing where you sort of run your receivers into one another type of thing, and then one of them emerges further downfield, and you try and find them, and it's very hard to defend against because you're bringing in the defensive backs. They come in thinking, is he just running a really sort of shallow route here that I have to stick with him? Oh, I've messed up my assignment. There's a guy behind me, and you did like that's But I mean, how come they didn't think of that on day one of pass camp? Do you know what I mean? That seems like really obvious, doesn't it? Like from a logical point of view, you would just say, well, the best way to obscure what is happening here is to change direction or what's that? Yeah, options. Yeah, like let's put lots of options down there and see what happens. But yeah, it's a really it's an interesting American football. I know, like when in the sort of 80s when it was becoming big in the UK, you were big into it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people probably were.
Yeah, I fancied playing. I mean, I turned down the opportunity to be in the Great Britain squad, so I could play American football for the Manchester All Stars, and was going to get paid for it. Now they finished up not paying me as much as they said they would, but and they also managed to damage my foot, which sort of meant I struggled the following rugby league season with a bit of a sore foot. But I was massive into it. Yeah, I watched loads of videos and sort of the problem that I got when I did turn up at the club. These were lads who were, we had a couple of Americans who were key players, American player coach, and a player book and all that business. We had a big guy, chunky fella from rugby union who was a good running back, but because I'd sort of got there late, I was like, oh, well, you have to work your way into it. So we'll have you on sort of kick receptions, and we'll have you playing defensive. And I thought, all right, well, I'll do that, yeah. But I really what I want to be is either a wide receiver or some sort of running back,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just, as I said, I didn't play enough games. They weren't paying me enough money. I hurt my foot, and so it sort of fizzled out. But yeah, me and Martin both played.
So,
Twisted my ankle. That was another thing. Badly, real bad. Doing the sort of high knee sort of warm up runs on an uneven pitch. Put my foot in the hole and twisted my ankle.
so would that have had you sort of pretty much playing all year round then? Was that in the summer?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And as I say, like I quit playing because I was carrying a few injuries. They weren't paying me enough, and it was sort of back to playing for Oldham then.
And how did you get in? Because I know we had the videos, and obviously YouTube's really handy for looking at the
Yeah,
NFL's greatest ever runners. Some of those are fantastic to watch, like the footwork and the speed, and not so much the strength. I always think that a lot of the like OJ Simpson and Jim Brown, Gale Sayers, and all that, they sort of benefited from fellas not really being able to make a safe tackle. Like their tackling technique was, I'm going to throw my helmet at you or my arm at you, and if I miss, I've missed, and that's it. It's like one shot, which is not really something that we would be able to relate to, because I think one of the things about rugby union and league and possibly AFL as well, games where you are making a tackle or some sort of attempt to stop somebody, is you want to give yourself every chance, don't you? So you get your feet in close, and you sort of you want to make it so if they do something like offend, that you can react to that, and it's not just I'm going to launch myself, and if it doesn't, which in some ways goes back to your point about the rugby union match you're watching at the weekend, where they've just made a decision and that's it.
Yeah, it's tackle technique is quite different. I mean, I know they did, didn't they? There was one club that sort of did follow the sort of rugby tackling. Was it the Seahawks a few years ago?
Yeah, I seem to remember something about that on the YouTubes.
More effective tackling. Their tackling technique changed a little bit, and their resulting number of tackles or whatever, their missed tackles went down, sort of thing. So. Yeah, and injuries. I think it sort of helped with injuries because obviously, we've got this sort of the concussion thing of it. People, American footballers think they're okay wearing a crash helmet, so they just throw that in. And,
American football does have some interesting, like evolutions. That they had the flying wedge, which was considered really dangerous. You couldn't pass it forward. And then the reason that they have forward passes is because it was too dangerous to not allow it, because the defenses were able to just spot who was going to get the ball and smash them to a degree that people, I think people had died. I think that's sort of why they decided to make the change. It is funny how sports can like evolve, but then it seems to have not evolved for years now. Like they don't seem to do anything different.
No, that's I think one of the thing about American sports, and baseball's the same. It's statistic obsessed, isn't it? And what they don't want to do is to sort of say, oh yeah, well this guy's got the best running yards since the rule change in 2024 or whatever. You know what I mean? They want to be sort of saying, oh yeah, this is comparable to the 1970s, the 1980s. This guy is the most dominant quarterback we've ever seen because he's got better stats than that guy who was big in the 80s. I think, like I said, baseball's terrible for it as well, isn't it? Like people who know statistics about players, and I just think, there's more to games than statistics, surely. To me.
Yeah, yeah. I think that sort of lends itself to pushing sport towards science, whereas I think that we probably see it more as an art form, like
Yeah.
martial arts is an art form, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people cynically might say, "Oh, come off it." People crashing into each other or trying to beat people with a pass and then crashing into each other. How is that art? But it's very much an open skill if you do it right, and that to me that is an art. It's the when to pass, how much to put into the pass. It's the receiver, it's where he's going to catch it, it's what he's going to do as soon as he catches it. It's all these variables. I sent you that thing yesterday, didn't I, about the guy who's a PhD student doing contact sports, and he was talking about agility, and how.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
If you sort of go off closed actions, like get people practicing things, that doesn't help their agility and their ability to respond to outside stimuluses. That's I think that's what the diagrams were getting at.
And then the whole thing, and it ends up putting you down the rabbit hole, or down the tree of it being you should be playing some version of the game and learning through the game that you're playing, which is like, that's our idea.
Oh yeah,
someone should point this out. So yeah, but the other thing I was actually just briefly, you're massive into sprinting as well, and just something that I was thinking about. The way I hate the coverage of rugby league, how there's a lot of absolute nonsense talked halftime, full time, pre-game, and there's there's a lot of cliches during the commentary. There's a lot of not showing us exactly what's happening by zooming in all the time, which is terrible. But I was thinking about sprinting today and how the coverage of sprinting, which is again hasn't changed in a while, that bit where they show you who's in the lanes goes on about 5 or 6 times as long as the event itself. Imagine we did that, where coverage for a rugby league game went on for like 5 lots of 80 minutes, then the 80 minutes. But I suppose it just shows that with this what are they called, the group that have taken over how the game is presented.
MG, is it?
IMG, yeah. Apparently when that happened in the past, I think it was the 70s, it was one of the things that they were very keen on changing was how the game was covered. And maybe I'll get my wish and we'll start seeing a different camera angle or just a different way of covering the game, because this nonsense of zooming in and not showing us the guys moving people around, all the interesting parts of the game that make it less about running into each other. And also I think there's a generation certainly now of players that have only ever grown up seeing that kind of coverage, and no wonder they're just running into each other all the time.
Yeah, well, I think if you think back to when you were a student and we were getting lads to play rugby league who'd only ever really seen it on TV, and hadn't seen much of it, but they were rugby union lads who sort of came fresh to rugby league. Like, it was so hard to get them to do stuff off the ball.
Yeah, because they weren't seeing it happen.
Like, no, I'm not. I don't know what you mean. You're
exactly.
like, you've got to be doing this so that the next play we can do this, and they're just like, oh, I didn't know that was happening. The coverage, the Sky coverage and the NRL coverage, it's still doing too much zooming in. It's like, well, I don't see what the benefit is to zooming in. All it sometimes gives you is that, there's a little bit of cheating going on there, hand under the ball or hand on the ball, or a little nudge, or they didn't let him get up when they should have done. So it's all negative stuff anyway.
Yeah, it is. Like it's the sort of worst of the game.
Yeah. I mean, when you see those clips where it's the what is it, spider camera or whatever that, you know, or
That looks
referee.
brilliant, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just makes it look a tons better game, doesn't it?
It's the best camera angle, and I just don't know why
You
they
see,
don't
and
do
you
that
see,
all the time.
you see guys taking up positions, and you
Yeah.
see defenders trying to block spaces that they know that they're under pressure. That if they don't get into that space, there is going to be trouble. You know, so it's like defenders readjusting, attackers readjusting. But it's
And the other thing, because we sort of tend to film from the side, you don't see how much like left and right side steps that go into a drive. You just would assume, looking at it from the angle that we are, and then seeing it
Yeah.
zoomed in, that the guy just trundled in, fell
In a straight.
over, and everyone else is just watching now, and there's nothing happening. But like, you know, that's something I don't know. I hope they listen to this podcast and change how things are covered, because it can make a huge difference. And it's not as if, I'm sure they will. I think the you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility to change the angles and the way the game is covered, in order to give it a more thoughtful, I don't know, shall I say ethos again? Yeah. We haven't had an ethos today. And yeah, I just think that I hope that happens.
Yeah.
But we will see, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And what we should do is we should keep pointing out times when we do see the different camera angles. We should keep pointing
Yeah,
those
like, yeah,
This is
share
what
that.
they did, we
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, definitely, you know.
Mm.
Anyway, we're gonna have to leave it there. I think we went
Okay.
over time 4 times.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So a lot of editing ahead. Thanks very much for your time and your insight, and I'll see you in, I suppose the next one will be mid-March that we'll do one of these.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. See you later.
See you.